One plea, two hearts saved.
The dust-choked wind howled across the cracked earth of the Oklahoma panhandle like a banshee's wail, carrying the metallic tang of regret and the faint, acrid bite of gunpowder from the sheriff's distant warning shot. Elias Kane clutched the frayed collar of his brother's shirt. No, not brother by blood, but by every scar and secret they'd shared since the orphanage spit them out at 16, while the rancher's shadow fell over them like Judgment Day itself. In that split second, as the lawman's horse thundered closer, Elias's voice cracked the silence. "Please take him instead of me," he begged, shoving Jamie forward into the stranger's path, his heart splintering like brittle bone under the weight of a love he could never name aloud. The rancher, Harlan Voss, didn't flinch. His calloused hand shot out, not to strike or seize, but to steady them both. First Jamie's trembling shoulder, then Elias's fist still tangled in fabric. Those steel-gray eyes, framed by the brim of his Stetson, held no pity, only the quiet thunder of a man who'd lost too much to turn away from desperation. Without a word, he hauled them up on his truck bed amid the rattling tools and coiled ropes, the engine roaring to life as tires spun gravel into the twilight. Behind them, the sheriff's silhouette blurred into the horizon, a ghost they hoped the endless plains would swallow whole. Jamie slumped against the cab, his chest heaving, blonde curls matted with sweat under the fading sun. At 19, he looked every bit the golden boy the world expected. Easy smile, broad shoulders earned from baling hay on stolen farms. But tonight, fear had stripped him bare, revealing the boy who'd whispered promises to Elias under starlit blankets in abandoned barns. "Why'd you do that?" he rasped, voice barely audible over the wind, his green eyes locking onto Elias's with a mix of fury and that aching tenderness they'd buried deep. Elias, darker-haired and wiry, all sharp angles and haunted blue eyes, turned away, staring at the receding dust cloud that was their old life. "Because you're the only good thing I've got left," he muttered, the words tasting like ash. He'd always been the shield, the one who took the beatings from foster dads or the jeers from town boys who sensed something off about the way they leaned too close. Jamie was light. Elias was the shadow that kept it from burning out. Harlan drove in silence for miles, the truck's headlights carving tunnels through the gathering dark. The Voss Ranch sprawled like a forgotten kingdom on the edge of the Cimarron River, 5,000 acres of stubborn scrub and resilient cattle, bought with blood money from Harlan's rodeo days and the quiet grief of a wife lost to cancer a decade back. He'd seen runaways before, kids fleeing debts, daddies with fists like hammers, or worse, the kind of small-town hatred that branded you unnatural before you even knew what that meant. But these two, there was a current between them, electric and forbidden, like the storm clouds brewing over the mesas. He glanced in the rear view, catching Elias's protective glare over Jamie's slumped form. Harlan knew that look. He'd worn it once himself, back when love meant stolen glances and haylofts and a heart pounding against the bars of its own cage. By the time they rattled through the iron gates, the moon hung low, silvering the corrals where longhorns lowed softly. Harlan killed the engine and stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel path lined with wild sage. "Bunkhouses that way," he grunted, jerking his chin toward a low-slung building with a sagging porch. "You eat." The boys tumbled down, legs shaky, exchanging wary glances. Jamie nodded mutely, but Elias stepped forward, chin lifted in defiance. "We ain't beggars, mister. We'll work it off, whatever you need." Harlan's mouth twitched, the ghost of a smile. "Name's Harlan. And out here, words like that mean more than silver. Supper's inside if you're man enough to claim it." The kitchen glowed warm against the chill. A scarred oak table laden with cornbread. Venison stew steaming in iron pots. And mugs of black coffee that bit like truth. Harlan watched them devour it, the way Elias tore off chunks for Jamie first, their knees brushing under the table in silent communion. Stories spilled haltingly between bites. The orphanage in Tulsa, the string of dead-end jobs, the botched theft at the feed store that had the sheriff on their tail, not for greed, but survival after Jamie's fever last winter left them penniless. Harlan leaned back, pipe smoke curling like secrets. "Plenty of work here. Fences to mend, calves to brand. But rules, no lying, no running till debts are square. And no," he paused, eyes flicking between them. "Got complications that draw eyes we don't want." The boys froze, forks midway to mouths. Elias's jaw tightened, but Jamie's hand found his under the table. A fleeting anchor. Dawn broke bloody over the ranch, painting the sky in streaks of crimson as if foretelling the wounds to come. Harlan roused them before the roosters, handing out gloves and hammers for the north fence line, where barbed wire sagged like weary shoulders. The work was brutal, sun scorching skin, thorns snagging flesh, the endless rhythm of post-hole diggers biting into unyielding earth. But in the sweat and strain, something shifted. Jamie laughed for the first time in days when Elias slipped in the mud, pulling him down in a tangle of limbs that lingered a beat too long. Harlan pretended not to see, focusing on the horizon where thunderheads gathered. But his chest tightened with echoes of his own youth, nights pressed against a fellow rider in canvas tents, hearts racing to the drum of hidden drums. Days blurred into a gritty symphony, mornings roping steers, afternoons irrigating fields that drank greedily from the river, evenings under the vast bowl of stars where coyotes yipped like lost souls. Elias and Jamie fell into it, bodies hardening, banter sharpening like knife edges. Yet the undercurrent simmered, stolen touches in the shadowed barn. Jamie's fingers tracing Elias's collarbone as they forked hay, breaths mingling in the loft's dusty hush. "We can't," Elias whispered one night, even as he pulled Jamie closer, the scent of hay and horse sweat mingling with desire. "Harlan knows." Jamie's eyes, luminous in the lantern light, held no regret. "Then let him. This place. It's the first that feels like home." Harlan did know. More than they guessed. At 45, he'd buried his secrets deep as the riverbed, the rodeo circuits, rough affections, the letter from his wife forgiving what she'd never named, the loneliness that gnawed like wire through flesh. Watching the boys, he felt a pull, paternal at first, then laced with something sharper, a longing to shield what he'd lost in himself. He taught them the ranch's rhythms, how to read a cow's eyes for calving trouble, the art of a lariat's loop, stories of Comanche ghosts who still rode the winds. In return, they cracked his silence, Jamie with his quick wit, Elias with quiet questions that peeled back Harlan's armor like sunburnt skin. But the plains don't forgive debts unpaid. Word reached the ranch by way of a drifter. The sheriff, old Harlan's acquaintance from greener days, was sniffing closer, badges heavy with grudges. "Vagrants on your land?" the telegram warned. laced with the town's underbelly, rumors of the boy's unnatural leanings that turned survival into sin. Harlan crumpled it in his fist, knuckles white as bone. That night, as rain lashed the tin roof like accusations, he found them in the bunkhouse, Jamie's head on Elias's lap, fingers idly combing through dark hair. "Trouble's coming," Harlan said flatly, tossing the paper onto the floorboards. Elias bolted up, shielding Jamie instinctively. "We'll go. Tonight." But Jamie's grip tightened. "No. We fight for this." The storm broke, not just the sky, but the fragile peace they'd forged. Harlan's voice rumbled like thunder. "You think running fixes it? Out there, you're ghosts. Here," he trailed off, eyes shadowed. "Here, you're mine to protect." The word hung, heavy with unspoken layers. Elias searched his face, seeing not judgment, but the mirror of their own hidden fire, a man who'd chosen solitude over shattering. In that charged silence, Jamie rose, bridging the gap, his hand tentative on Harlan's arm. "Then teach us how." Weeks turned to a fevered truce. The work intensified, fences fortified like battle lines, while the air thickened with unvoiced yearnings. Elias caught Harlan watching him during branding, the sizzle of iron on hide mirroring the burn in his veins. Jamie, bolder, shared smokes on the porch, their shoulders brushing in the dark, stories weaving Harlan's losses with their own fragile hopes. One evening, as locusts hummed a dirge, the three sat by the fire pit, flames dancing like confessions. "Lost my boy to the war," Harlan admitted, voice gravel rough, staring into the embers. "Afghanistan. Never knew him full. Not like you two know each other." Elias's throat closed, Jamie's eyes welled. "We're not," Elias started, but Harlan's hand on his knee silenced him. "I see you. And it's braver than most." The kiss came unbidden, born of storm's aftermath, rain-slicked skin, the barn's creaking timbers. Jamie and Elias, tangled in the hayloft, lips crashing like waves on rock, hands mapping territories long denied. But Harlan's shadow in the doorway froze them, not in horror, but quiet witness. "Room for one more?" he murmured, hat in hand, vulnerability cracking his facade like dry earth. Elias's heart hammered. Fear. Yes, but a wild, reckless pull toward this man who'd claimed them both. Jamie's nod was sure, pulling Harlan into the fold. Three bodies entwining in a dance as old as the plains, tender and fierce, breaths sinking to the rhythm of thunder fading. Dawn brought clarity, but not peace. Riders crested the ridge, sheriff and deputies, dust devils in their wake, badges glinting like false halos. "Boss, hand over the thieves," the lawman bellowed, shotgun cradled like a lover. Harlan stepped out, rifle loose in his grip, Elias and Jamie flanking him, spine straight as fence posts. The air crackled, wind whipping dust into veils. "These boys are mine," Harlan roared back, voice carrying the weight of lifetimes. "They work honest. You want him, you go through me." Shots cracked the sky. Not fatal, but warning, bullets chewing eartha boots. Elias shoved Jamie behind a trough, heart in his throat, while Harlan's fire answered, precise as a surgeon's cut, grazing a horse's flank to scatter the pack. Chaos reigned, horses rearing, men shouting slurs that cut deeper than lead, sodomites, one spat, eyes wild on the boy's closeness. But in the fray, bonds solidified, Elias's hand finding Harlan's across the corral, Jamie's cry pulling them both from harm's path. The sheriff retreated, cursing, promising warrants and reckonings. But the ranch stood unbreached, a bastion carved from will. In the aftermath, bloodied but unbroken, they mended more than fences. Harlan's cabin became sanctuary, nights blurring into confessions by lamplight. Elias traced the scars on Harlan's back, rodeo falls, war echoes, while Jamie's laughter wove lightness into the heavy air. Love flowered in triptych, Elias's fierce devotion anchoring them, Jamie's warmth igniting sparks, Harlan's steady depth rooting it all. Yet drama shadowed romance. Whispers from town trickled in, neighbors turning wary, supplies withheld. A fire, arson, they knew, claimed the hay barn one moonless night, flames devouring dreams in orange fury. They fought it shoulder to shoulder, water buckets sloshing, faces blackened, until embers died to ash. Rebuilding tested souls. Elias cracked under the strain, one dawn hurling his hammer into the dirt, tears carving tracks through soot. "We're cursed," he choked, Jamie pulling him close, Harlan's arms enveloping from behind. "No," Harlan growled, breath hot on Elias's neck. "We're chosen. For this." The kiss that followed sealed it, slow, searing, a vow against the void. Romance deepened in stolen hours. Picnics by the river where Jamie sketched their faces in river mud. Elias reading dog-eared poetry from Harlan's shelf. Harlan teaching them the waltz under cottonwoods. Bodies swaying to phantom fiddles. Suspense coiled tighter as winter bit. The sheriff's posse returned, emboldened by a judge's writ, storming gates at midnight. Gunfire lit the snow-dusted yard, bullets whining like banshees. Elias took a graze to the arm, crimson blooming on his shirt. But Jamie's scream fueled his rage. He felled a deputy with a fence post, Harlan's revolver barking cover. In a melee, truths erupted, the sheriff, red-faced and raging. "You harbor abominations." "Boss." Harlan's laugh was bitter steel. "Better than your hypocrisy. Tom, I know your stable boy secrets." The revelation shattered the line. Deputies faltered, whispers of scandal rippling. The sheriff wheeled, defeated, vowing ruin through courts. But ruin came softer, insidious, bank letters demanding Harlan's land for moral hazards, town council shunning supplies. Despair clawed, Elias pace nights, Jamie's optimism fraying, Harlan's silence a gathering storm. One blizzard-lashed evening, as winds howled isolation, they confronted the abyss. "Sell it," Elias urged, voice breaking. "Save yourself." Harlan's eyes blazed. "Never." "This is us." Jamie, tears freezing on lashes, pulled them to the hearth. "Then we fight together. All of us." Spring thawed more than earth. Allies emerged, ranch hands who'd seen too much to judge. A queer doctor from Tulsa slipping aid under cover of clinic visits. Romance bloomed defiant, lazy afternoons in the river, bodies glistening, laughter echoing off bluffs, evenings where Harlan's guitar strummed ballads of outlaws and love. Elias's head on his thigh, Jamie curled against Elias's side. Yet climax brewed in Tulsa's courthouse, where the sheriff's suit loomed. They rode in, Dust-caked and unbowed. Harlan testifying with quiet fire. These boys saved my ranch, my life. Judge their hearts, not rumors. The gavel fell merciful. Case dismissed on lack of evidence. Whispers of a sheriff's own scandals sealing it. Elation crashed like waves, back on the ranch. They celebrated under April stars. Bodies entwining on a blanket spread on wild grass. Love's tapestry woven in gasps and grips. Tender and triumphant. Elias, once the shadow, found light in their circle. Jamie's warmth kindled fires undimmed. Harlan, the rock, softened to river's flow. Years folded like bellows. The ranch thrived. Fences unbreached. Love unyielding. Elias and Jamie, now etched deeper by time, lines at eyes. Hands calloused in harmony. Vowed under the same moon that witnessed their plea. Harlan's ring binding three. In quiet moments, Elias would trace the scar on his arm, smiling at Jamie's teasing kiss. Harlan's steady gaze. They'd built not just a home, but a testament that in America's vast heart, where winds whisper judgments, love could claim its ground, fierce and free. Sacrifice had birthed salvation, a plea answered in silence, echoing across the plains.